And it's just basketball. At the end of the day, it's just basketball.
Like and subscribe on the way in the door, my people. I hope you all are having a truly, truly fantastic day today. Welcome back, my people. You see the title of the video. I've seen a couple of content creators do videos on this already. Shout out to Sports and Fitness Rants. Shout out to Too Raw for Sports. Walt Frazier says Michael Jordan has no case to be the GOAT, should not be in the GOAT conversation, my people. And normally, I hesitate to say someone is jealous or call someone a hater. So when I do, it is for very specific reasons. And in this case, my people, I must say, I do believe Walt Frazier has some sort of jealousy of Michael Jordan. Walt Frazier, 6'4" point guard, spent most of his career with the New York Knicks, two-time champion. Yes, I believe this guy has some sort of jealousy of Michael Jordan. But before we get into that, let's check out this article from Basketball Network. It says, Walt Frazier says Michael Jordan has no case as the GOAT. Jordan is not the leading scorer in the history of the game. He is not the winningest player in the history. Frazier doesn't think MJ was the best at anything. Okay. It says, at this point, it's easier to accept that the GOAT debate isn't going away anytime soon. No matter how exhausting, played out, and repetitive the conversation may be, besides the fact that the debate takes away from some of the greatest players to ever grace the league, it's also heavily subjective with no set criteria for people to operate within. That's an interesting statement. It says takes away from some of the greatest. I don't know if I agree with that. I believe it only takes away from someone's greatness if that person is not living up to their best selves or is comparing their self to be the GOAT. I think that's the only time it really takes away from their greatness. Otherwise, I believe people eventually end up establishing themselves with their own legacy that stands alone. It doesn't matter who people may compare you to, eventually that legacy will stand on its own. Are you saying that because the GOAT debate exists, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson is diminished? I don't think so. I think these guys still get recognized for the greatness that they are. It just so happens that most people tend to believe that Michael Jordan is the greatest player. And I think that's, again, to me, the GOAT debate is an inevitable conversation due to the nature that sports is a competitive thing. And by extension, media and fans are also competitive. And so that, conversation about who's the best team, and all those things are inevitable conversations when you are dealing with anything that is of a competitive nature. Anyway, I just want to throw that in there. It says, often players from the past eras favor their own decades during discussions and are lazy about their views as the game has evolved. To his credit, Walt Frazier, on the other hand, is an outlier. He is adamantly convinced that Michael Jordan is not the greatest ever, despite what the masses think. Again, this is an interesting thing to say. So are you saying the only reason that Walt Frazier's opinion is valid is because he goes against what most people think? Is this what you're saying? He's an outlier because he goes against what most people think. This somehow makes it more valid. Again, to me, this is not a qualifier that automatically means it's more or less valid. But anyway, says Clyde gives his take. Frazier wants to make it known that Jordan is not worthy of the prestigious title in his eyes. As we know, MJ is universally considered the GOAT by the older generation, and a lot of the younger generation too. So when one of their own goes against the grain, it will make headlines around the league. When asked about why Mr. Air doesn't qualify for the label, Frazier made sure to explain why he feels the way he does. Unlike some of his peers, the former Knicks and Cavs point guard acknowledged there is no set criteria. I always say, what is the criteria? He said, if you are talking about the most dominant, then it's Wilt Chamberlain, because the guy has all the records. If you are talking versatility, it's Oscar Robertson, the guy who averaged a triple-double for almost his entire career. Talking about winning is Bill Russell. The man has 11 world championships. So what is the criteria? Michael Jordan is not the leading scorer in the history of the game. He is not the winningest player in the history of the game. He is not the most versatile player in the history of the game. So how can you say he is the greatest player? Okay, and we're going to stop right there. So before we get into my reasoning about why I think this is coming from a place of jealousy and envy, let's just go back to the beginning. He says, I always say, what is the criteria? And so when he says this, well, first of all, let me go back here. It says, unlike some of his former peers, the former Knicks and Cavs point guard acknowledged there is no set criteria. So Walt Frazier acknowledged there is no set criteria. So that's the first thing. Walt Frazier, if there is no set criteria, then why is Jordan excluded? If you're saying there is no set criteria, why is Jordan excluded? Again, this is suspicious. To me, if you're saying there's no set criteria, then you can make the case for a lot of players because there's no set criteria. So again, this is already suspicious right from the get-go. Says if you're talking about the most dominant, then it's Wilt Chamberlain. And again, I don't necessarily disagree that Wilt Chamberlain is the most dominant player to ever play the game. I don't necessarily disagree. I don't necessarily agree either. It says if you're talking about versatility, it's Oscar Robertson, who averaged a triple-double for almost his entire career. Again, does triple-double automatically mean versatility? Again, to me, triple-double simply means that you're filling up the stat sheet. And I'm not saying that this is what Oscar Robertson was going for. We know this is what LeBron James goes for. But I'm just saying, to me, a triple-double doesn't inherently mean that you're the most versatile player. There's so many things. It's like, versatile offensively, and just because you're averaging a triple-double, again, doesn't mean anything. To me, Michael Jordan's best asset is that he knew what to do and when to do it. He was mostly a scorer who understood how to get his teammates involved, who understood when he should pass, but most importantly, the way he played translated to wins. So again, this whole versatility thing, again, I feel like this is a lot of things that they try to say about LeBron James. It's like, okay, Walt Frazier, so are you saying you're a stat guy? And he talks about Bill Russell. Of course, we've all heard this before with the 11 championships. And, he says Michael Jordan is not the leading scorer. Again, what does the accumulated stats mean? Walt Frazier. It's like, I feel like it should be a no-brainer that we're talking about average. What do you average on a nightly basis? So to say he's not the leading scorer, Walt Frazier, so are you saying that you're a stat guy? But anyway, so this was Walt Frazier's reasoning Behind why Michael Jordan has no GOAT case, my people. Now, let me give you my reasoning of why I do believe there's some jealousy and envy coming from Walt Frazier. Because the beginning of Michael Jordan's career, think about 5-6 years into Michael Jordan's career, Walt Frazier is on record making a statement basically saying Jordan has to understand he is not 7 foot. He's not going to be able to carry a team to a championship. Now, Walt Frazier saying this is again, this is kind of what the conventional wisdom was back then, is that you had to have a dominant big man to win a championship. So this is what Walt Frazier said back then. Now, this article is coming from the New York Post. So years later, after The Last Dance comes out, Walt Frazier does another interview, and this says Knicks legend Walt Frazier defends resurfaced Michael Jordan jab. And this is when, again, when he said that Michael Jordan has to understand he's not 7 foot. So this is coming from the New York Post. It says Knicks legend Walt Frazier doesn't remember making this remark about Michael Jordan in 1984, but he isn't surprised he did. During The Last Dance ESPN documentary premiere Sunday, a snippet showed Frazier opining about Jordan after he was drafted by the Bulls with the number 3 pick. He's not 7 foot, so he's not going to be able to carry a team in the NBA, Frazier said in the decades-old clip. Frazier's remark proved errant and gained buzz on social media. The longtime MSG network broadcaster, who recently turned 75, defended the sentiment and still won't name Jordan the GOAT. Quote, early on, I wasn't familiar with him in college, Frazier told the Post in a phone interview Tuesday from his Harlem residence. Anyone who plays for Dean Smith, he holds them back. Vince Carter, James Worthy, you never know the versatility of these guys when they play for North Carolina. He keeps them in a team system. No one knew he was going to do what he did. Frazier, who 50 years ago helped lead the Knicks to their first title, still was skeptical 6 seasons into Jordan's career when he had 0 rings. He broke his foot his second season. I was like, I don't know, Frazier recalled. And he was having trouble and complaining because he couldn't beat the Pistons. He was crying. He thought the general manager didn't know what he was doing. That was when I still wasn't sure if he'd be able to carry a team and make the next step. Then all of a sudden it happened. Says, indeed, Jordan unleashed his fury on the Knicks with Frazier in the broadcast booth. Frazier says he hasn't watched the documentary. Quote, I'm in enough pain with the coronavirus. I didn't want to watch Jordan, Frazier said. Really, Walt Frazier? So what pain are we talking about? Is it a pain to watch Michael Jordan's greatness? Because this is what it sounds like. And this is why I say, to me, there's clearly some jealousy coming from the side of Walt Frazier. When you are wrong about something and still, can't admit it, to me, this is a sign that there's something else underlying behind those statements. When years ago you say to the media, Michael Jordan has to understand he's not 7 foot. He's not going to be able to carry an NBA team. And then you watch Michael Jordan get 10 scoring titles with 9 first-team all-defense, with 5 MVPs, 6 final MVPs, and 6-0 in the finals, and that doesn't drastically change your perspective. To me, that tells me that there is something else underlying behind your opinion. And to me, that is jealousy. Like, that is like, I'm a 6'4" point guard. I could only carry the Knicks to 2 champion, and now I say carry the Knicks to 2 championships. Walt Frazier actually played with 2 good big men. He played with Willis Reed, who was almost a 20 points per game scorer for his career, and he played with Dave DeBusschere. So I feel like this is Walt Frazier showing some jealousies. Like, I only got 2 championships. I had great big men playing with me. Michael Jordan's not going to be able to do this. And I feel like it was more like, I hope Michael Jordan is not going to be able to do this. And when Michael Jordan did it 6 times over, with Michael Jordan's next best player being a small forward and Scottie Pippen, then it leads me to believe that there is more to this, especially when years later it's like, okay, well, you still don't have anything good to say about the guy. It's like, I can understand when he first got into the league having that criticism. I can understand when he first got into the league, especially during that time, like I said, when the conventional wisdom was you did have to have a dominant big man to win some championships. You did have to have great big men to win championships. I could understand it, but for years later, for a guy who went 6-0 with 6 Finals MVPs while leading the league in scoring, has the highest career scoring average in the regular season and the playoffs, and all this time has went by, and you still don't have anything good to say. That leads me to believe that there's something else behind those statements. That leads me to, and then to top it off, when they asked you if you watched The Last Dance, you said you were already in enough pain from the coronavirus. Yeah, I'm sorry, my people, but that I tend to believe that there's some jealousy and envy behind Walt Frazier's constant need to try to exclude Michael Jordan from the greatest of all time conversation. Like, again, and it would be one thing if you don't have Michael Jordan first. Okay, I can get that. But to say he has no case when Michael Jordan, he's talking about being the most versatile. To me, you talk about being the greatest all around. That is Michael Jordan, because you talk about someone who has multiple championships, who has 2 3-peats. But then you talk about someone who was a dominant scorer as well. But then you talk about someone who was a dominant defender as well. He was also a great passer, even though he may not have passed as much. But again, in the 1991 finals, he averaged like 11 assists a game. So when you talk about someone who has all the things, and then he has the competitive nature, and he has the athleticism, and he grew the game in a way that no other NBA player has been able to grow the game. When you talk about someone who has all those things, who has the greatest attributes of all the greatest players combined, well, whether you're talking about Wilt or Oscar or Bird and Magic or anybody you want to name, is like Michael Jordan is the overall package of all the best of those attributes in one player. So when you have that, and you have Walt Frazier talking about, oh, well, he's not the all-time leading scorer, or he doesn't lead at this or that, I'm sorry, it comes off as some jealousy there. Dare I use the word hater? LeBron James fanboys, you guys can say it for me. You guys are professionals at saying that word. But anyway, we gonna hold up here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you think of Walt Frazier's comment saying that Michael Jordan has no GOAT case? None whatsoever. Do you think this is Walt Frazier's true, unfiltered opinion? Or do you think that there is some jealousy behind the statements, and that there has always been some jealousy there? But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. You all have a truly fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. All right.